Hey fellow Sony 675 ES owners that have the dynamic iris issue. This is a video just to show you how to take it apart and fix it. This will probably work for any Sony projection owners that have the dynamic iris. The first thing is to get the case off. As you can see, the little screw holes, and they have a little arrow that's right there. I don't know if it'll show up on the, but right there is the arrow. So you have to hit all of those screw holes around the perimeter to get the case off the top. Let me get a better view there, but yeah, you can see the little arrow. So there's, I don't know, a dozen or so screws that you got to take out to get the top off. And here's what the top looks like. The most important thing is to realize that these two things here are screwed in. So if you don't get that screw, it's going to feel like you have it ready to come off, but there's some sort of plastic interlocking thing or whatever, but it's not. It's these two things holding in. You need to make sure you get the screws on those. And then, as I said in my write-up, you also have these cords here that you need to disconnect. These are the side panels for power and input and menu. There's cables that go to them, and you can't pull this off completely without disconnecting them. And then at a later point, you get to the front cover here, and you got to disconnect the LED lights. And then this is the IR receiver right there. You got to disconnect those two to take this off. But there are, again, this is where you'll think it's probably like an interlocking the tabs or whatever, and you got to push them down to get this out. But no, it's these two screws that are holding the whole thing in, these two right there and right there, and they're going in right here. There you go. And there's the other one to get the front off. And then these long stems here, those are the ones that I just missed them. They do have arrows pointing on the other side to take out the screw, meaning that the case comes off that way. So that thing, it corresponds to these things right here. So that's what you need to make sure you get those off. And again, here's two cables. Cable that goes to the iris right there. Right here's the iris on the spine of the lens. Okay, and one correction here. Just one cable to get the top case off. This goes to the power input menu buttons on the case, so it's just one cable. Okay, and then here's the lens assembly. And right here's the motor. I can't remember which one is which, but you know, one of these is zoom and one of them's focus. But there's one motor, and then here's the other motor. There's really only two motors that connect it. And that cable is connected right here. And there's a little sticky pad with double-sided tape right there that you got to, you probably have to break it off and then just to get these motors off and get them out of the way. You might be able to actually get around without taking those off, but anyway, it's just double-sided tape, so I would just take them off. So, and what you're left with to get this little lens assembly out is this screw here, and then there's one down here that I already have taken out. There's a third one right here, and then the fourth one is back there. That one's easy to get out. The screwdriver goes right to it. The screwdriver is, it's pretty close to get. You have to get it loose with pliers most likely, and then take it the rest of the way out with the screwdriver. This one's easy, and this one back there is the most difficult one, but you just need pliers to get it loose, and you can get it right out. And to get the lens assembly out, just use right there. And this is a 1/32, or excuse me, 7/32. That will take it off. I don't know if you can see that or not, but anyway, 7/32, or just use a Phillips head. It was sort of a, it might be actually like a star Phillips head or something, but my Phillips head didn't fit in there that well, so I went with the socket. And that one down there is kind of troublesome, but once you get it loose, either use a magnet or put a piece of paper on your little socket, and so it will grab the bolts, but the magnet works good too, as you can see. When you finally do get the iris, I left this unplugged, and the machine will work just as well without it plugged in or plugged in. I have my Ethernet connected to the projector, so I can use the iPhone as a remote control, and it ran perfectly fine. I was able to do it without the case on, so that made it a lot easier to get this back together and before you go putting the case on. And in case you thought you need to use the IR, if you have it connected to the internet, you can do it that way to quickly test. That was how I learned that I had the motors reversed, and I had that gear on this gear here, and I had that one on this one. And as far as I know, there are white lines here, but I don't think there's like a timing mechanism, but I could be wrong on that. I haven't tested it enough. It's Easter weekend, so I was traveling when I put this back together. And then once you get all 4 screws out and you have this cable disconnected, just be aware there's a, watch, they don't pull out, but they pull out pretty easy, but there is a little thing there that you gotta push in to get it out. So, but that comes right out. So, but there's the thing, like I said, you gotta push it in and then it comes out. But once you have your 4 screws out and that cable disconnected and your iris cable disconnected, the lens assembly just comes right out. And that's it. You get this lens back here. Looks like could be used some cleaning. I would recommend going with white gloves when you're doing this as well. If you're lucky, you got an old light bulb or you got some gloves with a light bulb or something like that, but use gloves as you're touching the lenses. Okay, and then to get these motors off, like I said, I don't even know that you have to take the motors off. The lens assembly. Here's some white gloves, highly recommended, because I just put this together to see if I got it working, but I have to go back and get the fingerprint left one on there. I thought I cleaned it good, but there's one on the inside underneath the protective piece of plastic. It's a lens, but it sort of seems like just a protective piece, but I guess it's an actual lens too. And this probably could be cleaned a little better, but I was more nervous about getting it back together, and so anyway, when I tested it, it didn't show up. So, and I'm gonna be here to start taking this thing apart. You gotta get all these little screws out. I think there's 4 on this ring, and then there's 4 on this ring. This ring is kind of hard to get off. It doesn't really fit, and if you take the lens apart a little more, it gets easier to take off, but you can slide that out and over that way if you need to. But anyway, I'll go ahead and take those screws out and get back here. All right, and here's 3 screws for this ring. Each hole is sort of equidistant around the ring. This ring holds this lens on, but there's also a tab here. There's 3 tabs that hold this plastic lens on, and it's like a silicone piece that sticks out here, and the tab comes over the top, and you can see that they broke off, but I don't even think you need them. So this ring holds the lens in place anyway. So, but there is that flat part here, so if you're worried about not having the lens aligned precisely, you might want to make a mark there so that you can get them lined up again. So I'm going to take the Sharpie and make a mark there. All right, so as you can see, I made a mark right there, and this thing just pops right out. There you go, and just watch you don't get fingerprints on. I have a little difficulty. I have the gloves, and turning the iPhone on and off with the gloves on isn't working. So anyway, that's the lens, and now you're getting ready to go deeper into the lens assembly. It seems sort of daunting, but it's not. You'll get this cover off, and that will expose the rest of these silicone and screws, and there's 5 of them in total for 5 different lenses inside this cylinder. Anyway, let me get it taken apart and I'll get back to you. Okay, the next step to get this apart is you take these screws out here. There's 4 of them, and then there'll be another lens on the other side that's held by 4 screws as well. This little disc will cover it up, so I'll get these taken off and get back. I got the 4 screws out here, 1, 2, little silver ones, there they are. And then this thing just slides right off. which exposes this pain in the butt ribbon. That ribbon is the iris ribbon, and that's the you know, the connector on the, I called it the spine of the lens assembly here, and then it enters into the actual cylinder of the lens assembly right there, held by a piece of tape. So next step then is to get this little lens cover off. It is a lens as well, but it's held by these screws. It looks like you can do some adjustment with it. Not really sure what that's all about, but again, this is maybe where you want to take the old Sharpie and make a mark. I know blue doesn't show up that well, but mine were like smack dab in the middle when I first took this apart, so I put them back that way, and it seemed to focus all right and all that, but I'm sure there's going to be some folks out there that are a bit anal on the lens assembly and worrying about perfect focus. So okay, and then the other thing here is, as I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a fifth one here. So each one of these represents a separate lens assembly inside. You know, a disc that's being held, and there's 3 of these across the tube. So anyway, let me get this top thing off and run it. So I got the 4 screws off, and you can just take that and it pops right off. Again, maybe you want to take the Sharpie, and I'm going to do that. And as I said, this comes right off. 4 screws. These little black screws, there's a lot of them that are the same, so just kind of keep them grouped. And there, that unearths another lens. And as you can see that ribbon sort of sticking out, so you want to make sure that's not sticking out, and you got to get that buried properly in the tube. And that's probably going to be the biggest, most difficult piece of this project. So, and I have no idea if it was showing like that when I took it apart originally or not. So, user beware of the dreaded ribbon cable. I think that's sort of going to be the annoying part of this project. All right, and then here's the other side of the lens. You can see there's a big fingerprint there. But this is where you're going to get the iris. It's just, again, like I said, 2 lens assemblies down. So we'll start going after it. Right up, I said you have to take the motors off. So I'm going to try it without taking the motors off and see if it works. So I'm taking these screws out. There's 4 of them around the lens assembly. Taking those out. There you go. I took those 4 screws out. 3 screws it was. So. And just want to show you there are 4 silver screws and 3 silver screws. Just remember that the silver screws bring the cylindrical plastic parts and keep those together. So anyway, and the little black screws sort of are the ones that are holding the lenses in. And so there you go. After that's taken off, this comes right out. And you don't have to, I don't think you're going to have to worry about taking the motors off, as I said in my write-up, but there's the 2 screws and 2 for each motor. So there's 2 motors, so that's 4 screws that you could take out if you wanted to get rid of the motors. And there's the 2 screws that hold the plug for the dynamic iris. And I imagine you just take those 2 out, and then it can go up, or you can pull it out of the assembly then after you get to the iris. All right, so now I'm going to flip this upside down, but be careful. You got that lens there that, you know, you could end up scratching if you're not careful. So put something soft down. But now you're going to attack it from this side. So this dynamic iris replacement is even easier than what I've initially said. And I actually don't think this lens touches, so okay, so it's tough to see the iris because I have it wide open because I fixed it already. But you know, when you look in, you'll see the iris. It'll just be a hole about the size of a pencil, and you know, it sort of has that hexagon or octagonal shape to it. So now I'm going to start taking these. I only have to take this screw out, and this screw, and I need to do all the way around the cylinder. So there's 3, so 6 screws in total just to get it, and this last one is what holds the iris in. So I'm gonna take those out and I'll get back to you. And again, I would put like a dot, which I'm gonna do right now. And as you can see, that's the glass there, but this is plastic over here, so I'm just gonna put a dot so I know that this side is up. And when I took this apart, I did not put a dot on. I wish I had. So that piece right there is the only one that could potentially be flipped around. But it looked fine when I did the test. So I'm assuming I got the 50-50 luck on my side when I put it in. The one after it, you can't put that in wrong because the iris is underneath it. Okay, I got the screws out. There's 3 of them. And again, you have the silver and you have the black screws. And just be careful, these screws are long versus the short ones. So all the long ones go with those white silicone things. All right, and so I have them out, as you can see, so that doesn't have a screw in. But those little white things actually still hold the lens in place. It'll move, and you could probably get it out if you forced it, but all you do is just sort of stick something in there, and then you can just bend it out. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. Yeah, there you go. So that's it. And just match those up with the screws. So, all right, I'm gonna get those 3 out and I'll get back. Okay, I got it out and you can see it's sort of tipping in there now. There you go. So you just flip it upside down and put it into your hand with the glove on. And you're probably gonna have to clean these lenses. And but anyway, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll do that off camera so I don't drop it. Okay, so you do have to take these motors off. It was hiding, but you can see there's a little black plate here. These screws go into that black plate, but that black plate is actually hiding one of these white things here. And I didn't pick it up as I was taking this apart. But all you do is there's a screw there, and then there's 2 on the other side as well. And they hold the motor brackets on, as you can see. So I took these out before. And I'm just going to try to stick with just taking these off. And again, this is where you get the Sharpie out and number them. You know, put like a 1 and a 1 so that you can get it back in the exact right spot. So there you go. I took it off. You can see the holes. They just go right up in there like that. But as you can see, it now unhides that screw there that I got to get out. And here's the other one down here. Again, it just goes right up in there. And there it is, hiding that other screw that you'll have to get to behind the wire there. So anyway, I ended up just missing one. But it's no big deal. Just takes a couple seconds to take the screws out. So again, I think I said 3 before, but there's 4 white silicone washers and 4 black long screws for each lens assembly. And as you can see, I took this motor off. I left the circle right there, so you can just drop that back down and it'll go right up into place. I'm just going to move that out of the way. There's probably a better way to do it. Just maybe taking those brackets off is easier. I don't know. Anyway, I'll get it back together. Okay, and then that last lens assembly is loose in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and drop it right here. There, it falls out. So again, it flipped automatically there. So again, that's why you want to have the blue dot on, which you can see I put on there. So, and it looks a little fogged up, and I'm gonna have to clean it again. So I'll set that over there. So now I'm onto the lens that's holding the iris behind it. So there's the little, I don't know what that is, but it's the underside of the motor, and then you have these screws here. They actually hold the iris, but I think I can hold off. The first time I did, I took those screws out, and then the iris fell down in, which it was fine. It worked, but I think if you're doing it, you want to take out this second set of screws and white things first. And I think the ribbon is long enough that you can get it out of the tube and then disassemble the iris. I'll be right back. I got again, you can see these rings here. There's a ring there, you know, an open space, and then there's an open space, and that's where those white silicone things go in. And you'll hit the lens hole behind it to screw them in and get them put in the right place. And you know, there's this whole column, so you'll see when you're putting it back together. It's fairly straightforward, but it does. That's how that whole, if you can see the zoom and telescoping action happens. All right, and then just a little note on the screws too. I think you might be able to pick it up, but this is a pan head screw, I think it's what's called, and it's flatter than all the rest. So just be careful with those. And I don't think it's a big deal. They seem to work, and all these black screws seem to work in the same holes, but they go flush as you can imagine, and then the other ones are in areas where it doesn't matter if you have it flush. So okay, now I got this loose. I'm gonna go ahead and see what happens when I sort of empty it. So there it is. You can see it pops out, and there's that ribbon. So let me bring that over. If I can do this with one hand. And there's the culprit, the damn iris, the dynamic iris. And as you can see, there's the ribbon, and there's 3 screws that hold the back plate of the dynamic iris. So that's it. That's all the deeper you need to go on this lens assembly. And I'm going to take these 3 screws out and show you sort of what I think the culprit is. Because I don't think it's, I don't think it's like a bad iris. I just think it's a bad sort of the materials that are used are causing too much friction. But again, I didn't do any sort of testing on it. But if it's making that noise, that means the motor's still working. It's trying to dry the iris, but it's just not happening. So let me take that plate off. All right, so I took those off, and these are real stubby, small screws compared to those and compared to the other ones. So just these 3 stubby ones go to the back plate of the dynamic iris. And you can disassemble the iris just by hitting those screws, but I'm not even going to bother with that. I'll just take this plate off to show you what it reveals. And there's no springs or anything, so it's not like a pull cord for a lawnmower or anything. See if I can get it off. And I just touched the lens, so don't do that. There you go. And again, maybe you want to put a blue dot on it just so you know which side is up. I don't think it matters, but and actually it was a little tricky to get in, so just there's that flat side there, so you just want to make sure you get it lined up. But I think it can only go on one way, so all right. And so this reveals the dreaded iris, and so there it is, open. Yours is probably going to be closed, but just touch the little plastic things there. I'm probably gonna have to do it with my fingers here. I don't know if I can do it with one hand. There it goes. So that's it. That's the dynamic iris. See, now it's like stuck. This is what I think the problem is. I think it's these little things here are not that great. They're not smooth. They're sort of raggedy, needed to be sanded, or anyway, let's see, I'll put it on the zoom here and see if it's a little better. But you can see they're not the smoothest things. And where else? There's another one, and there's that little spot, that thing right there. I think it gets hung up on that stuff. I don't know. And and then the edges, if it gets too far open, it can maybe rub on, right in there. But these things are just, I think that's what's causing the problem. And I swear to God, if I had some Teflon spray, or I do think I have some lithium grease, I'm tempted to put it on. But yeah, so when you try to do it manually, it'll work like smooth for get it a couple times, but then it just gets hung up and you gotta force it open. I didn't take it apart though, so there could be a mechanism underneath. But I think if you're doing this fix, I couldn't find a part for it, but I think almost if you're doing this fix, you're either gonna keep it wide open and keep it disconnected, or you're gonna just flip the coin and get it open, and then hopefully it works for 30, 60, 90 days or 6 months or a year or something like that. And I mean, literally, this you can probably do this whole operation in 30 minutes once you've done it once or twice. So, but anyway, and maybe somebody will find the lens assembly. I did find a part that was $63, but I think it was just the cable, and I think it might be. It said it was like the dynamic iris assembly, and I think they might just be talking about this cable here. I don't know where it goes to, but I never got into that. So I got the iris back open. I'm not going to put any grease or anything on, but maybe if you just grease this post and these little nubs here all the way around, maybe that would work. All right, well, I'm going to clean these lenses and then put this back together. I hope this video helped, and if I'm putting it back together and I notice I skipped a step, I'll add it in. But this is sort of the breakdown, and yeah, this is I think this is even easier than putting like an iPhone screen on. So,
Hey, just wanted to add a quick voiceover to this part. I took pictures instead of video by accident when I had the thing all put back together. So the one point I want to go over is when you get the dynamic iris coupled again with the lens and you put it back in the cylinder and you're trying to get the cable set up properly, the ribbon cable that is, you're going to do the telescoping action and extend it and collapse it, and all the ribbon cable should be inside the cylinder. But what's going to happen is if you don't have the lens and dynamic iris, that coupling, when it's put into position with the 4 screws, if you don't have that set properly, you'll have a sort of loop of the ribbon cables extending out into the projector, the path of the projector light. So if that is the case, then all you have to do is, if it's secured by the 4 screws, lay it horizontal, take out the 4 screws, and then rotate the lens and dynamic iris assembly, rotate it clockwise from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and that will create a twist in the ribbon cable, and it should freely sort of adhere to the cylinder wall, and that will get it out of the path of the projector light. Again, just rotate it 45 degrees without the screws in, then put the screws back in. Again, make sure you're looking through the cylinder to ensure that it's not looped out into the projector's light path. And again, because you could, if it's in the path of the light a little bit, you might not notice it. So you got to check to make sure it's not. You put it back together and watch a movie, it's just going to cause a dimming effect, and you might not even notice it, but it'll be there. So I just wanted to go over that real quick, how to get the ribbon sort of straightened out, because that's kind of tricky.